Cody and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you guys how I created my two Princess Tutu cosplays that I wore at Anime Expo. These two cosplays were definitely a labor of love and I'm really excited to show you guys how I put this whole thing together. Sadly though, I didn't get to film any of my progress because I was in such a hurry to finish these two outfits for Masquerade. However, I do have a bunch of progress pictures that I took throughout the entire process that I put in for my portfolio for prejudging. So this isn't really a cosplay vlog, more of a cosplay breakdown, but I'm going to try my best to explain everything as best as I can using the progress pictures that I have and all the resources that I mentioned in this video. I'm going to post a link in the description box below. Alright, let's get started! So the first one I'm going to show you guys is actually the second outfit that I wear, and that is Ahiru's white swan outfit. So the base of this costume was actually a Mccall's ballerina pattern. I first made a mock-up out of muslin, I went ahead and fitted it onto my body, and then I went ahead and made the real deal. So the main fabric on this outfit is a matte white satin, and then it's also fully lined as well, along with some boning in the bodice. And it's hooked together with these like pants, hook and eye things, and then the straps are just regular elastic. So it doesn't really deviate much from the original pattern, so there's really not much for me to explain about the overall construction of this. So I will kind of go more into the details instead. So the first thing is of course this feather trim. I just got this feather trim from Joann's, and it's actually 2 rows of this same trim. So I sewed the first one around, I just tacked it completely by hand. Once I made the entire bodice, I just tacked it completely by hand. And then I went through the whole thing and it didn't feel as fluffy with me. So I actually roped it around and then worked my way back just to create that extra fluff because it's a stage costume. You need more. Then this little gem is actually a sew-on gem that I bought in the LA Fashion District. It's pretty self-explanatory. You just hand stitch it on and there it goes. So the one thing I really want to get into is all this rhinestone detailing. Let me tell you, this took so much time. So the way I did this is I actually used a technique that a lot of people use for stenciling, which is using freezer paper. So first off, I sketched a design on paper, I then transferred it to freezer paper, cut the whole thing out, and then before I even put this entire bodice together, I ironed it onto the front panel, and then use that stencil as a guideline to place all these stones. I believe there was definitely over 1,000 stones in this one motif alone, but it's just all glued together with a B7000 glue and then a wax pen that they gave me. I don't know, the store ladies gave me, so I just used that. I definitely recommend cracking a window open or doing this in a well-ventilated area because holy crap, that thing smells! Yeah, this was very time consuming, but oh my god, it looks so good, and then if you get in the sunlight, it just sparkles. I love it. So that's pretty much the whole bodice. Moving along. Okay, so normally I would put this on my mannequin, but unfortunately this tutu has leg holes in it, so unfortunately I couldn't get it over my mannequin. So I'm really sorry guys, you're just gonna have to kind of settle on watching this whole thing from the floor. So the base of this tutu is basically the same as the Mccall's pattern. However, I didn't follow it exactly to the letter. I wanted to really try to do as authentic of a tutu as possible. So essentially there's about 12 layers of tulle on this tutu alone, and they all come in different weights and they're in different lengths. If I flip it over, you can kind of see it a little bit more here. One thing to keep in mind though is that these are sewn in different directions. So as you can see from this bottom layer here, the tulle is sewn with the edge going down. But then the next one above that is actually one with the edge going up. And then you just alternate in between as you go all the way up. And for the top one, the edge should be going up because that is the final layer and that is the one you need to kind of hide. So to kind of summarize how I did each of these layers, essentially I cut 3 rows of each length and then I sewed them all together using a ruffle foot. And for those of you who don't know what a ruffle foot is, it essentially gathers the fabric for you, so you can do it in different settings, so it can be like wider ruffles or tighter ruffles. I just set it to the tightest ruffle thing and just ripped it. So like I said, I gathered all the ruffles you see on here and then I sewed them to this panty that comes from the Mccall's pattern. But after what I did was I then did these thing called, I think they're called swing catches, but essentially they're these little, I don't know if you can see them on the camera here, but they're these little catching stitches that essentially just bind all the layers together, so that way they don't bounce around when you're dancing. One thing to keep in mind though that I did not do, that I did this on purpose by the way, was that most tutus come with a metal hoop that goes around this area of the tutu. The reason why I did not put that in there was because of the fact that I had a quick change. Not having the hoop in there makes it a little bit more collapsible. So if you are doing a Princess Tutu cosplay or just any ballerina cosplay and you want this to be more transportable, I would say skip the hoop altogether. But just know that the tutu will be a lot floppier, so you're not going to get that perfect pancake tutu look. So just something to keep in mind if you decide to omit that hoop. So once I put the tutu together, I then made this skirt overlay here. It's made out of the same matte satin as the bodice, as well as the yoke. Well, with this design, instead of using the freezer paper method like I did with the bodice, I just went ahead and did a machine base stitch over the design. I drew it on the back and then machine base stitched on it. And then I just used the rhinestones to cover up the stitching. These are held together with the hook and eye thing that I showed you from the bodice. And then one thing I want to draw attention to is actually these hooks right here. These are not for putting the thing together. This is actually to attach the bodice to the tutu. So the reason why I put these hooks in is because normally tutus are just one entire piece, so the bodice is sewn to the skirt, and then that's the end of that. In order to make going to the bathroom a little easier, I put these hook and eye things on the side and then on the back. So then that way if I did need to pee, I can just unhook it here and here, and then unhook the back, drop the tutu, and then do my business. And if you want to see the correlating hooks, they're right here on the bodice. So one at the very back and then one at the side seam. So that's how they're hooked up together. And that is the tutu. So the next thing I wanted to go over is the wig. So if you notice in the reference photos, it's not quite like the typical tutu look that you see in the anime. It's actually something a little different. Unfortunately, there's no back view of it, so I can't really see what the back's supposed to look like. So it's kind of based it off of like, you know, various different other Swan-like productions. And what I ended up with was kind of this like dewdrop feather look. So the base wig is an Arta Wigs. I believe it's Magnum in light pink, I think. This wasn't really a big thing in styling. I just flattened the back out, trimmed a little bit here and there, and then I tried to add the ahoge that Aikido has, but it doesn't really stay up too well, so it just kind of flops. But I wanted to kind of show you guys how I did the feathers. So the way I did this is that all these feathers are mounted onto a felt piece right here. And then all these feathers are actually goose feathers, and then I cut them to the shape that I wanted, and then I hand sewed them in like 2 to 3 different places. So first place I kind of sewed them was towards the end of the stem, and then the next one would be kind of a little bit more up, just to kind of secure it a little better. So once I attached all the feathers to the piece of felt, I then went ahead and sewed it directly into the wig. So it's actually secured up here and then down here. Now the reason why I did this is because I also have to do a wig reveal in the skit, and when you do a wig reveal, you want to make sure that everything that's underneath the first wig is going to be secured in place. So that's why I did that, so that way nothing was going to get tangled and it could just like stay on when that first wig comes flying off. Now for the tiara. So this tiara really isn't utilized much. Really the only time I ever used this was mainly in photos and then like part of the skit as a prop. So whenever I have to wear this tiara, I actually have to go ahead and pin it directly into my wig, and what ended up happening was that it kind of just peeled off all of the paint that I used, so I gotta find a way to fix that eventually. But basically this tiara was pretty simple. It's just craft foam, fibra, and wire. And I just covered the tiara, I covered this whole part in fibra. So then I put these little pieces of leftover fibra in the back to kind of hold the wire in place. And this little tape was just to kind of like hold the ends together. I went ahead and spray painted the whole thing with gold spray paint. And then I attached all of these rhinestones on here. Again, B7000, used a lot of it. I think I went through almost all of the bottle. So yeah, if I wear it again, I just pin it in here. So yeah, that was outfit number 1. On to outfit number 2. Okay, so this is the other Princess Tutu outfit that I made. And so this outfit I believe is particularly inspired by Coppelia, which is about a doll. So that's why it looks pretty doll-like, you know, poofy sleeves, big skirt, all that good stuff. So I'm gonna start off with the top. So the base pattern of this top is actually my go-to pattern, which is Simplicity 2341. I use this in so many different cosplays. You have no idea. I might do a video on that eventually. Yeah, this was basically that pattern. The basic things obviously was I changed the sleeves to be from a long straight sleeve to a short puffy sleeve with a little cuff here. And then I also added this plunging neckline here and then this triangle thing at the bottom. That was the basics of it. And there's one more thing also that I put in here, but I'll get to that later. This whole top is basically made out of, I believe, a poplin fabric. This was actually leftover poplin fabric from my Haruhi cosplay. And all this fabric I've had like lying around in my house in Hawaii for like so long. So basically, between Haruhi and this, I actually got to use the rest of it, which I'm so happy, because there's less storage involved. This trim up here is basically just a pre-bought lace trim that I just sewed onto here by hand. And then this whole panel here is comprised of a couple different trims. So the first one is this white lace trim here that I just pre-bought from the LA Fashion District. The second and fourth are these yellow ribbons. The third one was this flower pattern on here that's actually comprised of a flower trim that I bought at Joann's, and then I hand sewed beads onto every single one of these. So, and then now off to the very center of this, these are just 3 yellow beads that I picked up from Joann's. And these 3 flowers here are I actually embroidered these myself with a technique called a daisy chain stitch. I followed this tutorial on YouTube and just basically kind of mimicked the technique that's used in there. I'll put a link in the description box below if you guys ever want to try it out for yourself. Then the sleeve here, I don't know if you can see it too well on camera, but it's made out of an organza material. So it's sewn together like a regular bell sleeve. But one thing to keep in note, because this is a transformation dress, I wanted to make sure that everything was able to come off very easily. So this cuff here, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little cuff here. This cuff is wide enough so that it comfortably goes over my elbow. So I'll try to demonstrate a little bit. Yeah. So I know this is kind of weird, but yeah, it goes over my elbow really easily, so watch. Ta-da! Okay, so on to the skirt. Okay, so this skirt is made of different materials. So the bottom 3 layers are just this tulle here, and essentially I made these very similar to the white tutu. I just used my ruffle foot to gather them all together, and then I sewed them onto a belt, which I'll show you how the belt works in a minute. So the bottom 3 here were really just to kind of smooth out the layers between the tutu and then this skirt. So next up is this poplin fabric. It's the same fabric from the bodice up top, and I didn't use the ruffle foot for this one. I just kind of gathered it in a more traditional way. After that is about 4 to 5 more layers of tulle. I'm really sorry, I think just static is making it look a little weird. And then under that is the apron, which was made out of gabardine, and then a pre-made pink trim. And then as you can see on here, I did do the daisy chain stitch all over here in smaller amounts. So again, these were all done by hand. This took so long, you have no idea. And then finally over that is a chiffon layer, which also has a little trim on here as well. So that one was also gathered and then attached to the belt, and I'm going to show you how the belt works right now. Okay, so now I'm going to show you guys how this whole thing comes apart. If you guys ever want to do a transformation dress yourself, or if you ever want to do a tearaway yourself, you want to put your tearaway points on a seam. So in my case, this is a princess seamed bodice. So I actually put it on this side seam right here. So if you notice on here, this has about a ½ inch of space between the Velcro and the edge. This is so that my fingers can get under it, so that I can use that as leverage to rip it off. So you can start, I can start from the middle, I can start from the top, I can start from the bottom, but either way, I get my fingers under here, and then I just pull. And as you can see, this whole thing is just Velcro. So I actually went ahead and hand sewed this piece of Velcro here, so that way the outer seams wouldn't show here. And then this bottom one here, I just sewed in by machine, and then I just finished off the edge here. So it doesn't fully overlap. It just overlaps enough to where you can kind of get that effect. So just rip it off, and then kaboom. Okay, so now for the skirt. So all the layers of tulle and poplin and chiffon and gabardine, they're all attached to a belt right here. If you notice, this belt actually overlaps a little bit, and that's because I wanted to make it not so obvious that this was gonna just come apart. So yeah, that's also kind of one of the reasons why I decided to use tulle as part of this skirt, because in the reference photo, she actually doesn't use tulle. But the reason I wanted to use tulle is because then it's actually also a little easier to hide any kind of like, gaps in between. Although that kind of didn't really work too well because this chiffon layer doesn't overlap too much, so if I kicked enough, it actually would just kind of go like that. So, something to keep in mind for later on. But anyway, so on the belt, comes right here, and again, there's about a 1/2 inch seam allowance between the edge and the Velcro, so it makes it easier to get your fingers under there. So you get under here, and then you pull one. So there's one Velcro point here, and then one Velcro point here, so it's like a double safety measure. Again, I hand stitch these Velcros on this section, and then I machine stitch the ones on here. So in fast motion, it goes like this. And because the poplin and the gabardine and the chiffon kind of add a little bit more weight to it compared to the tulle, it actually made it so easy so that I can just like rip it off. I was actually a little worried about static kind of getting onto the tutu itself, so it made it a little hard to rip it off, but it did. So I'm really happy that happened. And that is how this tearaway works. Okay, so now I'm gonna kind of talk a little bit more about the wig that goes with the Coppelia outfit. So I do apologize for it being a little bit messy because when I pulled it off in the real deal, it kind of messed up the styling a bit. So yeah, so just pretend that this is nicely styled and everything. Just pretend. So starting from the top, this bow is made from the same poplin as the bodice. And as you can see, it actually is directly attached to the wig. So like I said, with the other wig, if you want to do a thing where you transform your wigs, make sure that everything is anchored down because pins and whatnot can kind of like get tangled up and then it doesn't come off quite as easily. So this one kind of had a better ahoge than the other one. I think it's because I actually put a lot more effort into it since this one was going to be the first noticeable one. So the base of this wig is actually an Arta Wigs. I believe it's a Ferrari in light pink. This was the same wig I used for my strawberry ice cream cosplay from Sakizo. And so what I did was I basically just straightened the whole thing out, pulled it into a low ponytail, braided, put 2 braids into it, and then kind of twist them all up into this bun here. And then I kind of just put a million bobby pins in here to kind of just hold it in place. This isn't a really great idea. This is my first time doing a bun on a wig. I'm used to more doing it on real hair, but yeah. I think I did okay for a first go. There's also supposed to be these 2 braids in here, but I did not have any time at all to do it, so I just kind of let it be as is. You notice something? I did not cut the bangs, and that's because when I layer the wigs, the bangs from the second wig here actually will peek through, and I noticed that if I just cut the bangs together, it would look like super thick and therefore a little unnaturally. So I just part the bangs to the side since they're pretty long bangs anyway, and then let the bangs of this wig kind of peek through. So I'm gonna try my hardest to kind of show you guys how the wigs worked. These were kind of hard to set up. This was the only time that I required any kind of assistance. And thanks a bunch to Cailing, my friend Cailing, for kind of helping me do this. So how I did this, pretend that this wig head is my real head. What I did was I first put this wig on, kind of as normal. So what you want to do is you definitely want for your bottom wig, if you're doing a wig transformation, you want to pin the hell out of your bottom wig down. So obviously if the real deal I would be using bobby pins, but for this particular demonstration I'm just going to pin it in. I'm just going to put some pins into the wig head. Okay? So you got that down. So next, you're going to take your top wig and then carefully lay it over. Again, you may need some assistance to do this. I certainly needed assistance to do this. But you're going to do that and you're going to carefully place it over. Like try to get it to lay as flat as you can. Yeah, damn, like, now I know why I need help so much. Yeah, so just kind of lay it down as best you can. So you definitely want to kind of pull and tug at it, like really get it down, and damn, I'm messing it up even more. Great job, Cordy, great job. Even more. Cailing kind of pointed out to me the feathers, they kind of stick out, so what she ended up to do was she kind of had to like kind of force them underneath of it, so they kind of mess up the feathers a bit. But if you do it right and you kind of use the hair to kind of like, you know, hide it a bit, you should be okay. So that's what. So yeah, make sure that whatever the top wig you have can kind of hide any details. Just kind of part the wig a little bit more, and so yeah, this is kind of how I just layer the wigs. It's the same color, same brand, and then I didn't pin it this top wig at all. I'm actually surprised it actually held up as well as it did, considering that I was dancing full throttle at it. But yeah, I didn't pin anything at all, just the elastic from the wig itself. Really kind of just used it to really anchor it down onto the second wig. I can't really say if that'll work for other wigs, but it worked for this one. I think it may be because it was done by the same maker, so the head circumferences were the same. So just kind of keep that in mind if you ever want to do a wig transformation. So like I said, pin the living hell of the bottom wig, don't pin the top wig, and then when you're ready to transform, all you gotta do is find a point to grab it at, and ta-da! Wig transformation. With some flyaways, but that's okay. You have a wig transformation. So the last thing I want to talk about in regards to my Princess Tutu cosplays are my shoes. Now, out of everything that I had to do for both of these outfits, this was probably the easiest thing to do, but there was still some work involved. So as you can see, these are not authentic point shoes. These are actually just demi-point shoes, and forgive the mess, but they've been running around on concrete and in dirt, places that you should never put a ballet shoe in, but I digress. And the reason why I decided to do a demi-point shoe instead of a point shoe was because obviously I was going to be dancing a lot in this, and while I do own a pair of point shoes and I do have ballet training, the best that I can kind of do is to hold myself up for about like 5 seconds. So even though I stuck with a demi-point shoe, I still wanted to evoke the look of a point shoe. So these shoes originally came with crisscross elastic straps right around here. So what I did was I cut them out, I seam ripped them, and then I pulled them out specifically, and then I got point shoe ribbons, and then essentially just sewed them in as if I was putting these on a regular point shoe. So I'll post the links to a few different places on how you figure out how to place these things, how to tie these things, how to sew these things. I'll just put a whole bunch of links in the description box below if you guys want to check out on how to do this yourself. But this is a method that you can do if you just decide to do a ballerina character and you want the look of a point shoe, but you don't necessarily want to get actual point shoes, because one, they can be expensive, and two, they are not for average people feet. You definitely need to have training before you get on those things. They hurt, and you need strong angles for them, so warning about that. Alright guys, so I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you learned a little something about how I made my Princess Tutu cosplay. Please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and if there's any questions you have or suggestions, please feel free to leave it in the comments below. Please subscribe to this channel if you want to see more cosplay videos from me, or if you want to check out more of my dance stuff, I now have a separate channel for that, so please go check it out, Corey Dances. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!